The Trap That Backfired, a chess masterpiece. Chess is a battle of wits, patience, and precision. Some games are slow and methodical, while others explode into chaos from the very first moves. This is the story of one such game, where a player launched a ferocious attack, only to see it turn against them in the most dramatic way possible. The opening, a bold attack. From the very first move, White showed clear intent. This was not going to be a slow, strategic battle. Instead of carefully developing pieces and controlling the center, White immediately went for an aggressive setup, targeting Black's weak spots. The King's Knight leaped forward, not to its usual position, but to a square where it could immediately threaten an attack. A few moves later, the Queen joined in, aiming directly at Black's most vulnerable point, the f7 square, the weakest link in Black's early position. This was a common attacking idea in beginner and intermediate games, the famous scholar's mate attempt. But Black, an experienced and resourceful opponent, was not phased. Instead of panicking, they calmly developed their own pieces, reinforcing their defenses while waiting for the right moment to counterattack. White, however, was committed. The attack had begun, and there was no turning back now. A bishop soared into the enemy camp, adding yet another piece to the attack. At this point, it seemed as if Black's defenses might collapse. The knight, the queen, and the bishop were all aiming at Black's king, and with one more precise move, checkmate looked inevitable. The king on the run. The king on the run. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of defending passively, Black made a bold decision to walk the king out of trouble rather than hide behind fragile defenses. The Black monarch stepped forward into the battlefield, dodging the immediate threats while still holding the position together. White, seeing this, doubled down. The pieces flooded forward, cutting off escape routes and setting up what seemed like an unstoppable attack. Every move was played with the intention of delivering a swift and brutal checkmate. The white pieces worked in harmony, cutting off diagonals, controlling key squares, and preparing for the final blow. But Black was not sitting idle. Every time White attacked, Black found an escape route. Every time White threatened checkmate, Black had a resourceful defense. Slowly but surely, the balance began to shift. The pieces White had sacrificed for the attack were now missing from their own defenses, and the exposed Black king, instead of being a weakness, was becoming a strength, luring White's pieces forward into a trap. White still believed in victory. The queen and the remaining minor pieces circled around Black's position, searching for a way to finish what had begun. Pawns stormed forward, knights jumped to attacking squares, and the pressure kept mounting. But then, Black struck back. A simple, yet brilliant countermove disrupted everything White had planned. One of White's strongest attacking pieces was suddenly under attack, forcing a retreat. The aggressive strategy that had looked so promising just moments ago was now beginning to backfire. White hesitated. For the first time in the game, uncertainty crept in. Should the attack continue, or should they fall back and defend? But the problem was clear. Too much had already been sacrificed. There was no turning back. White had no choice but to keep attacking. Black, seeing the desperation, calmly brought more pieces into the fight. Every move was precise, each decision calculated. White, on the other hand, was running out of options. The clock was ticking, and the once dominant attack was now falling apart. Then came the turning point, a powerful move that completely shattered White's position. The queen, the centerpiece of White's attack, was suddenly trapped. There was no escape. With a single stroke, Black had flipped the game on its head. The final blow. At this moment, White realized the terrible truth. This was no longer an attack. It was survival. The remaining pieces scrambled to cover the weaknesses, but it was already too late. Black's counterattack was unstoppable. Move after move, Black's pieces closed in. The board, once filled with White's aggressive presence, was now dominated by Black's forces. The once exposed Black king was completely safe, surrounded by defenders. White, who had started with so much promise, was now on the run. Finally, the last move came, a beautiful checkmate in the middle of the board. The Black queen delivered the final blow, supported by a knight that had patiently waited for its moment to strike. White's king, completely trapped, had nowhere to go. The game was over. Lessons from the game. This game was a perfect example of how overaggression can lead to disaster. White had started with an ambitious and dangerous attack, hoping for a quick win, but when the attack didn't break through, it was White's own position that fell apart. The biggest mistake? Not preparing the attack properly. White rushed into the assault without making sure all the pieces were in position. Once the initial attack failed, there was nothing left to fall back on. On the other hand, Black played with patience and precision. Instead of panicking under pressure, Black kept finding the best defensive moves and slowly turned the game around. The exposed king, instead of being a liability, was used as a trap to lure White into overextending. The final result? A stunning checkmate that White never saw coming. This was not just a game. It was a lesson in strategy, patience, and understanding when to attack and when to defend. Many players love aggressive openings and quick checkmate ideas, but as this game shows, a reckless attack can be deadly if the opponent knows how to defend. For those looking to improve, the key takeaway is this. Before attacking, make sure your position is solid. If your attack fails, have a backup plan, and never underestimate your opponent's ability to fight back. In the end, this game was a battle of ideas, aggression versus defense, tactics versus strategy. White tried to force a win early, but Black's calm and calculated play turned the tide. A brilliant counterattack, an exposed yet unbreakable king, and a final, crushing checkmate, a true masterpiece of chess.